Welcome back to the channel, and today guys we have an exciting one. Today we're going to talk about how to shoot effective, cinematic, yet story-driven B-roll for your documentary. B-roll really is one of those things that you always want to shoot more of, but how do you shoot good cinematic B-roll and most importantly, capture relevant footage that you could actually use to tell your story? Today is all about getting those juicy, beautiful images that actually help tell your story and crack that B-roll code. So the first thing that you want to do for any film production, and especially for documentary, is plan out your shots. Very rarely do I go into a situation where I'm shooting a documentary or a commercial without having some sort of shot list prepared and ready for my production. What I like to do is look at the interview questions that I have prepared, and I start trying to think about all the different story elements that could help you visualize what my subject is going to say or what I think that they're going to say. So if we're talking about a loved one that has passed, I'm gonna make sure that I write down some B-roll of just picture frames that you want to get in their home. Or maybe you even want to ask your subject if they have any old video footage or photos that you could actually use, or even shoot them holding the pictures in their hand. Let's just take my MMA docuseries for example. If a fighter is talking about their training, what I'll do is I'll write down a list of shots that I want to show that's relevant to the questions that I'm asking. I'll show B-roll of them wrapping their hands or putting on their gloves or hitting the punching bag. Your shot list really doesn't have to be too detailed. Just try to list some of the shots that you need to tell your story. A few things that I like to put on my shot list are the angle. I'll show a picture of a specific angle that I kind of want to get, and then I'll make sure like to put the focal length. Maybe it's a 24 millimeter, maybe it's a 50 millimeter, maybe I'm going for something super compressed like an 85 millimeter, and then I'll make sure that I put the frame rate, and that's a very important one. You want to make sure that you're capturing your vision in the proper frame rate, because if you do want to slow this down later in post and you got this in 24 frames, well, you're pretty much out of luck. Really ask yourself, do I need this in 24 frames, in 60 frames, or maybe you even put down in your shot list that you want to have it in both. No matter what, the one constant that I always shoot for B-roll in any situation that I'm in is establishing shots. An establishing shot is where you show the viewer the location or the environment that you're in. Now, this could be a drone shot of the city or the neighborhood that you're in, or it can just be a static shot of you going outside with your tripod on a wide angle lens and just capturing the overall view of where you're at. And establishing shots are so important because it gives the viewer an idea of the world that this is taking place in. By far, one of the biggest issues in the beginning of my career was I would be missing shots that I need to be able to tell a full story. And that was because I didn't have a full sequence of events shot in order. And what I mean by this, if you're shooting somebody getting ready for work, or maybe they're getting ready to go work out, and you kind of shoot them waking up in the morning and then all of a sudden, boom, they're in their car. You could edit into that and you could try to find a way to make that work and to make that flow. Your life is gonna be so much easier if you're telling the whole story of them waking up. So you get them getting up, you get them going to the kitchen, maybe they're eating something, maybe they have a little food, and then they're on their way to their work or their job or whatever it is that they're about to do. And when you film all of those events in order and you ask your subject, hey, let's get you waking up out of bed, then let's get you brushing your teeth, then let's get you eating food. You might not use all of that stuff, but at the very least, you have everything you need to be able to actually tell a full story. So I highly suggest that when you're creating your shot list or when you're in the moment and you're shooting something, think of your story in order and in the proper sequence that you want to edit something, or just in the sequence of normal everyday life. And I promise you guys, you're gonna have a much easier time when it comes to editing this B-roll. Sometimes when I'm filming documentaries, I will have a second shooter or a second camera angle out with me, and we'll be able to capture wides and close-ups, and normally we're on two different focal lengths. A lot of the time I'll have someone be a wide shot and then I'll have someone kind of be the more detailed shots. But there are times where I'm in a running gun situation where I'm by myself and you have to kind of think on your feet. So whenever you're shooting B-roll, always think of whatever scene that you're capturing or whatever it is that you're getting. Always capture a wide shot, like a nice wide establishing shot of them doing this action, and then always try to get some detail shots. So for example, if you're getting a fighter hitting a punching bag, get a nice wide shot of them hitting this punching bag And then I'll make sure that I have them do the same action and get just them really up close, just the glove hitting the bag, or just the motion of their arm hitting the bag. And what this is gonna do is help you so much, because if you're trying to tell the story of what's going on in that day, you don't just want the same kind of shots over and over again. You need to make sure that you're giving yourself the room to be creative, right? So you're getting those wide shots, you're getting those really close detail shots, and then your edit starts to become way more dynamic. Now, I'm sure you guys already know this one, but a big one is capturing slow-mo shots in 60 and or 120 frames. If you don't have a ton of B-roll options or ideas, this can literally save your life. You can quickly turn a 30-second shot into a 60-second shot just by slowing it down. When I know that I don't really have a lot of great ideas for B-roll, I'll make sure to shoot everything in 60 frames, especially if I'm doing a more emotional piece and you want to hang on a subject's facial expression, or you want to capture something a little bit longer or make something a little bit more dramatic. When I'm making documentaries, I find that if someone is talking about something emotional or a feeling that they're having, slow motion footage just works so well, because depending on the look that you're trying to go for, it really helps you drag out that feeling and dramatize whatever moment that you capture them in. One of the hardest things to shoot for is B-roll that represents emotions or feelings that your character is experiencing internally. The question is, how do you show someone's sadness without being really cheesy and super over the top? There have been times where I've shot really emotional documentaries where someone is talking about how they were feeling and how they dealt with this particular moment in time. And one of the tricks that I found is I like to ask somebody, hey, can you just take a second and just look out the window for me? Think about what it is that you have to get done today. And I'll tell them, you don't have to worry about facial expressions. You don't have to act anything out. Just stare out this window, think about what you have to do, and act like I'm not even here. And if they're talking about a relative or someone that's passed in their life, what I'll do is I'll show them holding their picture, or maybe even an object that they used to own, or anything that could show the audience that they are thinking about them. And another great tip that I use a lot of the time, when I'm shooting a documentary and we're talking about something emotional, I'll ask my subject to look up at the sky and then look down at the floor. And it's so crazy to me how often that works. It kind of just feels like they're really internalizing something, and they're looking up at the sky and they're kind of thinking about something, and then they look down at the floor. And if you shoot this in 60 frames, you could really have a dramatic moment. I'm not gonna lie, you have to kind of get a little bit creative with it, and you have to figure out how to put your character in a situation where they don't have to act, because remember that these aren't actors. These are just normal, everyday people that have probably never been on camera before, and you're asking them to do something that they're probably uncomfortable doing. Whenever you ask them to do something, you can't direct them too much. You have to make it subtle. And that's why I think when you ask them to kind of like look up and look down, and you're capturing this in 60 frames, and if you're lucky, you're capturing it from a couple of different camera angles, you're gonna get at least a few frames that are really good and usable for your documentary. Now, the last tip that I have for you guys today, and I know this sounds super obvious, but make sure you nail your shot. If you say to yourself, I think we got it, shoot it again until you know you have it. And that's why I think it's so important to make sure that you have a good on-camera monitor, because there's been so many times where I'm trying to move really fast and I'm trying to be cognizant of everybody's time, or maybe I'm working against the clock on the sunlight that is out, and I've shot something and I've tried to rush it, and I got back to the editing room and I was like, man, I got all this footage, but half of it is out of focus. And that's when you have to take your time and really make sure that you get the shot that you're trying to get. Even if you have to ask your character or your subject to do it again, it's so important to make sure that you nail focus, your composition is right, and the actual shot is good. Trust me when I tell you, it's gonna make your project come out so much better. So make sure that you schedule out your time properly, and you give yourself a good amount of time to shoot the B-roll that you need for your documentary and to tell your story. And if you guys are interested in learning more about documentary filmmaking, we're actually producing a course for the last couple of years that we hope to launch by the end of this year. And if you guys want to know more about that, I'll leave a link down below or right up here. Sign up for the email list and you'll be notified as soon as the course comes out. I'd like to thank you guys so much for taking the time watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Deuces.